And we're on, I think. Are we on? Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
There we go. So
wait for
Berdin
the
and I
feed to come up.
always, we always have a heart attack just before we go live. It's like, are we on? Are we coming on? What's happening? We're all on. Welcome to Leaders Live. I'm Andrew Jenkins. This is a short countdown timer to have the various feeds catch up and to settle down. And we can't wait for today's groovy show, folks. We'll be hanging out with, I've just lost my pen on the floor. We'll be hanging out with Jacob Reimann, founder of a new startup, Inner Freedom Healing, and our theme today is healthy lives, ADHD, dyslexia we're talking about, and healing from past trauma. Give us a wave, say hello, Paul, Jacob, lovely, just a quick hello.
Hello there, good morning.
Lovely, good morning. We're just waiting for the feed to come up on LinkedIn. There it is, brilliant, fantastic, there we go, we're on. Our fab moderator's with us too, chipping in. She'll keep us on the straight and narrow. Give us a quick hello and a quick wave, Berdin. There we go.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, we'll come back to Berdin as well in a while. Music by my Uncle Peter. 69 show, folks. Fantastic. How about that? And we've all been part of this growing community that feels really exciting. I think that might need a... We love that jingle. We just think that jingle's brilliant. So a quick shout out for our sponsors, Your DMS, and we're delighted that we're powered by Your DMS, our Leaders Live sponsor. Yeah, we're so excited about that. Thank you so much, Your DMS. And more about Your DMS as we go through the show, folks. So, quick little bit of Leaders Live. So, oi people, it's Leaders Live showtime, folks. It's just after 8:45 a.m. here in the UK, and we've got plenty of people coming on, and we can see people interacting with the feed already. So please say hello to us in the feed so we know who you are, and we can start building. Hello, Cecile. So we can start saying hello to you and start interacting with you. And we are live. So with Leaders Live, spreading the love, folks, spreading the love, yabba dabba do. And if you're new to Leaders Live and you don't know me, as I mentioned in the countdown, I'm Andrew Jenkins. And Leaders Live is an interactive and dynamic weekly talk show that generates business through networking, through community, and through extraordinary conversations. Morning, Steve Whittle, and morning, Cecile, as well. And our motto here is I to the power of we. So we're streaming out on multiple channels simultaneously today. It's all funky stuff. Amazing how technology works, including Your DMS's company page and my all-new Leaders Live TV website too. It's just incredible. So yeah, deserves a wow. Don't you just love tech? And if you can't catch us on live or on the replay, fear not, my friends, we have you covered. Because this goes out on podcasts as well. Yay! It's just brilliant, isn't it? And we've got this new app that we're playing around with, and a few of you have already interacted with this. So if you like what you see, or you want to say thank you for all the effort, we put a lot of effort into this free show, you can buy me a coffee too on buymeacoffee.com/Leaders Live, and the link is in the chat. And it's just brilliant. Let me just show you a little test. This is what happens. So you get a little shout out there. Whoa! And it comes up with your name and all sorts of things. So it's a nice little distraction, but it's a bit of fun and just keeps us all motivated. So there we go. So as I said, we're an interactive show today, so please interact with us in the feed. Please get involved, join in, ask questions, network with the live community, and even a little friendly banter. And for you regulars, lead the way, show how we roll, and smash those likes and those thumbs up too, folks. We really appreciate that. It keeps us motivated as well as buy me a coffee. And please follow our company page on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Leaders Live YouTube community. All these things to subscribe to. So, phew, put it all together. What have you got? Yep, you've got it. Bibbity, bibbity, bobbity, boo. Yeah, I love that phrase. So let's just get the side-by-side scene up. So, let's bring in our this week's Leaders Live guest. And as I already mentioned today, I'm hanging out with Jacob Reimann, founder of a new startup, Inner Freedom healing, and our theme is healing from past trauma, and we're also going to talk about healing from neurodiverse conditions, or neurodivergent conditions is the grammatically correct version of that, such as ADHD, dyslexia and dyscalculia, etc, etc. How you doing, Jacob?
Very good. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Andrew. All good?
We've got loads of people joining in, which is great. So that's fantastic. Interesting topic, says Dr. Julian Nesbitt. Great to see you on the show, Julie. Yeah, we thought, we tackle some brave topics here, folks. And this one's quite a brave one to tackle because neurodiverse conditions. But we all know somebody, right? Whether it's ourselves, whether it's someone in our family, or someone we work with, a close friend. We've all got to deal with this, and I think business has got to get to grips with this kind of stuff as well. It's really important. So tell us where we're heading, Jacob. Give us a little flavour of where you're taking us. What's the big picture today, Jacob?
Yeah. Well, so the big picture is really to kind of take people through a little bit of a background on trauma. What it is in terms of how it affects the energy system, the body, and the mind, and how trauma can cause or contribute. Obviously, it's not the only cause to neurodivergent conditions, and obviously, trauma as a separate thing. So there are obviously aspects of trauma in trauma, but in neurodivergent conditions, and we'll just go through the kind of things that can contribute to, so people can understand why they may have them. Where in the body and mind it is, what is it and where is it, and how do you actually begin to, what do you do about it?
Yeah, where is it? What is it? What do you do about it? Yeah, and I like that kind of really interesting, radical thought process going on there. That there's a link between trauma and neurodiverse conditions, and our, part of our growing up, and things
and gut health and toxins, and just something in the body mind system is not right, and that's their symptoms of an underlying issue or underlying issues or a combination thereof.
Interesting, and very different model, folks. I think from conventional sort of NHS type model, maybe not trying to be intentionally radical here, but just picking up what you're saying. That whole mind body system is a different way of thinking about it, and diet. And I know Paul Winfield's on as well today, and he's really keen on nutrition and hormones, and all those sort of things that affect our mind body system. So I think that deserves a So we think it's a massively important subject, folks, and not only for sufferers, but as I said, for people that we know as well, and trying to understand people around us, which is what this show's all about. It's about having extraordinary conversations. And Jacob, you've got a question for us to kick us off, get the interaction going. What's your question for us?
The question is the mind and the brain the same?
Is the mind and the brain the same? Are they the same thing, or is there a difference between our mind and our brain? Yeah. So that's where we're heading, please. So start kicking off with that question, answering that question, folks. And good morning from Denmark. Let's just have a quick shout out for a few people. So good morning, Jonas from Denmark, and Cecile's just come back from Paris, and we've got Steve Whittle. And Rebecca Richins, good morning. Paul Winfield, good morning. Yep, great when the tech works, he says. Absolutely. Oh, yes. We've been on Discord this morning as a bunch of regulars and just testing all of those things out. And they were working fine today. Hooray, we've cracked it at last. And good morning, Dr. Julian Nesbitt. And hi, Andrew, interesting topic. Absolutely, Julian. Yeah, we agree too. And Caroline, good morning. Really interesting title there. Good morning to Caroline, who has got in brackets autism. So that's really interesting. So I suspect this is going to be interesting to you as a topic as well. And Paul Winfield just jumps in and says definite difference. And we'd like to know perhaps what may be those differences without getting into paragraphs. But is there a difference? So please interact with us. Oh, good morning, Laurie Hales. So we'll come back to all those comments in a moment. Jacob, just going to put you on pause just for a moment, just while I just pick up where we're heading very shortly. So let's just bring up the moderator scene. So we've got the wonderful Berdine with us again, our fantastic moderator. And here's a chance to say a bit more, Berdine. Let's bring you into the conversation as well.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, today is actually a topic very dear to my heart. Jacob,
so.
and I don't know if Andrew told you, but these are topics that I always talk about because people has got this set view of, either trauma or ADHD, or it doesn't matter what type of disorder which they classify it in, which isn't actually a disorder for certain people, but they just need to know how to actually view it differently and learn more about it, gain more knowledge about it, so
Yeah.
that they know exactly how to actually talk to these people. They're normal. They're all normal people. So it's really a topic dear to me. And I look forward to listening to you today.
Thank you, Bertie. I love that challenge to us because the kind of conventional health systems all see this as a disorder, and we're
Yes.
kind of saying, well, why is that? Because it's just a different way of thinking, right? That's what we're hoping, and we'll get to that as Jacob explores this. So there's plenty of comments coming the feed. I'll come back to those. So. Yeah, thanks, Berdine. And as mentioned, Leaders Live is an interactive show, so please join in. Don't be shy. Use the comments and ask questions too. Jacob is really approachable, so you can ask questions as we're going along. So please don't be shy. Remember, it's a group conversation, folks. That's how we roll. And for you regulars, set the example as you're doing already. So just a quick intro into your DMS, Get to Know You in 5, which is happening this today as well. We've got our 5-minute interlude slot, which happens roughly about halfway, depending how the conversation's flowing, called Your DMS, Get to Know You in 5, where we briefly feature a regular on the show so we can get to know each other a little bit more each week and put a face to a name. So that's what's happening then. So that deserves a... Wow! And today's show we are showcasing recent contributor Paul Stead, expert sales guru at ASL. So we're talking to him a little bit later. Ooh, and he'll join us at the halfway intermission, as I said, where we also shout out our fabulous sponsor, Your DMS. Just so you know. So back to you again, Jacob. Let's just bring you back into. And just before you begin, let's just give you a round of applause. Where am I for the applause? No, go on the applause. There we go. There we are. Timing is everything, isn't it? And you'll be clearing up that confetti for ages, I'm pretty sure.
I will.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it gets everywhere. So I hope you love the groovy build-up, Jacob. Feel the love. So let's start off. Let's have a look. What are the comments in the comments field, Birdie? What's going on?
Okay, we've got Laurie saying there is a difference. The brain is a biological organ. The mind is a combination of nurture and nature that is unique to each individual.
Oh, like that. So what say you, Mr. Reimann?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, basically, that's a conceptual way of looking at it. But if you actually look at yourself, and and obviously, if you think of the Chinese energy, meridian system, for example, which has kind of mapped out all the energy channels and how it interacts with the organs and the emotions. So if you sort of use that as a model, which has been around for thousands of years,
4,000, 5,000 years.
Yeah, and it just gives you a different perspective on what we are. What are we as human beings, and how we connect with each other. So in terms of the brain, obviously it's an organ, and it's kind of important to have a brain, but that's just one part of our whole system.
That's the physical end of our consciousness, right? Perhaps maybe one way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
So what else, Berdine?
I've got Steve Witzel. I think it's not the same. The mind is what we use to think and reason, while the brain is the organ that houses our mind and controls our body.
Yeah. Jacob's nodding away there. Brilliant.
Yep.
Thanks, Steve. Fantastic. Oh, my mate Maria Jeffers is on. Sorry, go on.
Good morning, Maria.
Yeah.
Maria said, such an interesting topic. From my reading, I understand that there are 3 different areas of the brain. The emotional brain, where our thoughts come from, so maybe this is our mind, the memory area of the brain, and the logical fact-based area of our brain.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can see you nodding away there, Jacob. What say you to that?
Well, it's all correct, right? I mean, there's no, there's no. They're all ways of looking at it, and obviously you can look at it from a kind of academic research point of view, in which case it's all correct, you can also look at it from the kind of energetic, emotional side, which is also true. So there's no right or wrong. It's does the model kind of work in describing how it functions, and which model is actually going to guide you to understanding the healing aspect.
The healing aspect. So yeah, okay. Right, so there's a kind of hook towards our healing aspect and how we use our mind and our brain and our body. Then
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, we'll come on to those links shortly. So that's interesting. So Jonas, sorry Maria, Berdine, what else is going on?
Jonas says that it's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
As I see it, a sound mind depends on a healthy brain.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
we've got Dr. Julian saying, so there are certain ways of thinking and understanding that can make ADHD and autism a superpower.
Oh yeah.
And there's
Well done.
many theories on this. Taking a holistic approach is very important. As a specialist doctor in mental health, CEO of a platform trying to improve access to mental health disorders and a person with ADHD, a lot of a debate to be had, definitely.
Oh, that is so well articulated. Let's just bring that up again.
Yes.
So well articulated, Julian. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of debate yet to go on this. I love the fact that you're talking about ADHD and autism as a superpower and not as a dysfunction, because I'm really completely I buy into that process. What say you, Jacob? I see you nodding away there.
Absolutely. I mean, having gone through my own, challenges and resolved them, and knowing how, challenging it can be to, get the right access and get people to understand, who you are and where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of people struggling, suffering with all kinds of, symptoms. So yeah, I think it's a really, really, fascinating and challenging topic.
Yeah, I agree. And just as an aside, and we've just been through a pandemic. Obviously the last 2 years, you could be living under a rock if we don't realise those sort of things. Have you seen a kind of resurgence of some of these conditions that we may have thought that we've got over as a child, and they've kind of resurfaced themselves due to kind of lockdown issues and things, Jacob?
I think a lot of people found lockdown challenging because their daily habits were so transformed, and a lot of them may have been, having underlying, anxiety or fear of groups or people, and when lockdown happened, they didn't happen anymore, and they suddenly found they were a lot calmer, a lot happier. Whereas conversely, some people might have not spent as much time with themselves, and once you're alone with yourself and you're not used to it, that can be quite a challenge as well for some people.
Yeah. I found it very challenging, and I found some of my childhood conditions sort of revisiting. I got quite mentally ill with the whole sort of back end of the pandemic. So yeah, and carry on, Berdine. What else is going on? Thank you, Jacob.
We've got Laurie saying, Maria Jeffers, there's actually many more areas of the brain, but there are three major areas of the mind.
Oh.
So Laurie is looking at the mind there.
Yeah.
And then she said she disagreed with Jonas. You can have a sick brain, so a tumor, for instance, and still be of sound mind. But there are thousands of brain cancer patients that are at least early in illness of sound mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a bit of that.
Nice.
Then Paul said, we are fortunate to have more than one brain. Neurons are distributed throughout the body. To suggest the brain resides in one area is misleading.
Yeah, there's a lot more research on this now, isn't there, Jacob? And maybe we can hear a little bit from Julian as well on this. So interesting. where people are, where experts are now saying, well, they're starting to see, a lot of neurons in the heart area, which and the stomach area, which act as second brains, right? And we even say that, don't we? Second and third brain. So, what say you, Jacob? Any thoughts you want to add to that?
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously we've got the gut brain axis. We've got the gut as a sort of store of our a lot of neurons down there through the vagus nerve, and it's all connected to the brain. So there's the brain isn't just this bit, but you've got the whole nervous system as well. It's all connected.
The brain and body are one system, right? Brain, body, and mind are one system.
Yeah.
That's an NLP presupposition, by the way, folks. So posh word. Cecile, sorry, Berdine. Cecile's jumped in as well. What's going on for Cecile there?
Yeah, Cecile said she missed the question, but ADHD and autism are forms of gifted intelligence.
Yeah.
I find highly developed, but not always in our world.
Yeah, I think we've got, as Julian said, we've got a lot of debate, haven't we, to go through to kind of normalise or what is normal, I suppose. We're all on a spectrum somewhere. Any thoughts for you, Jacob, there?
We are all normal, because if you think how many people do have different neurodiverse challenges or autism, then and how many of us have or had all kinds of different things, then normal isn't, what does normal mean?
What does normal mean? Yeah. And interesting that you link that. We'll talk about that later, to nutrition and what we eat and things like that. So there might be conditions that this could be on the rise because of the food that we're eating and stuff. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, super. Berdine, what else? Seems like let's just finish the chat.
Well,
I don't think we'll ever
Cecile
finish the chat.
said no. So Maria just went off and said, okay, so there's 3 areas of thinking.
Yeah.
So just confirming that. And Cecile said, mind reflects our character and brain is our upper organ. But then Laurie went against this. So Laurie said this is not always true. Intelligence is independent of ADHD or autism. There are many highly intelligent people with ADHD and or autism. There are many more individuals of average intelligence that have either. And there are people who have low intelligence with these afflictions.
Yeah, so the two are mutually exclusive. Is that what we're saying here, Jacob?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, they're not dependent on one another. So intelligence and interesting, just different ways of wiring, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, yeah, love that. Yeah, well, Laurie, you're on it today, aren't you? So quick shout out for Laurie. She's on it. Lovely.
And then lastly, we've got Jonas saying the health of our whole body is affecting our minds. The entire system's health determines the health of our mind. A fit body will positively impact the mind. A good example is that the bones produce a protein called osteocalcin that has been shown to be essential for a healthy brain. Laurie Hales agreed. I guess I ended up in a lost in translation situation.
Lost in translation, I love that. That was brilliant. Nice one, Jonas. He always comes out with some curlers, doesn't he? Lost in translation. That's just brilliant. Fantastic. Okay, so thank you for that. Let's just. So, question for you then. Let's sort of start digging into this a bit further. So what really intrigued me about your inner healing approach was that you talk about freedom and healing from neurodiverse conditions, and that made me, Jacob, really pay attention. And I thought, if you have any conditions, then I thought it was about learning to cope with them, through strategies. But what you're saying, Jacob, is that people can find healing from them too. That's fascinating. Tell us a little bit more about, what is that inner sort of freedom healing that you're talking about, Jacob? Give us a flavour of where you're heading. This is really
okay.
radical stuff.
So if you let's take for example dyslexia as an example, which I had, and so obviously there's something in the nervous system which is not functioning optimally. Otherwise, we wouldn't be dyslexic, right? We would be able to, the letters would be stable. They wouldn't be, jumbling around, or the numbers wouldn't be jumbling around, or we'd be able to, calmly read sentences without our eyes, flipping away out of stress responses, or all kinds of different things. So obviously there's something causing stress on the nervous system, right? So the question is, well, what is causing that stress? And why do people without that stress on the nervous system not have dyslexia, for example, right? So the question, therefore, is, well, what is that? So when you look at the way the nervous system is built, and if you look at the way that trauma affects our, and so now I just want to bring in the concept of what we call primitive reflexes.
Primitive reflexes, right?
Which is what from conception to a year or so after birth, we have what are called reflexes, which are kind of programmed into our nervous system, which we use before we learn how to respond to danger, before we know that fire is bad. There's something in our nervous system which, when we put our finger into a fire, it automatically withdraws, right? And there are other reflexes which we know how to wiggle through the birth canal, for example. We know how to grab fingers. We don't need to learn how to do that. We just know how to do it. Instinct. Right? Yeah. And when we have, for example, birth trauma, or trauma in later life, or there's quite a few different reasons. Sometimes these reflexes that should turn off, at 6 months or 3 months or 1 year, they don't turn off. So that means that our nervous system can be in permanent stress. Yeah.
So just write that down. Yeah.
And a lot of people in my practice that have had different, neurological challenges, and obviously there's different things with, toxins in the brain and diet and all that kind of stuff. But many of them, when we start doing the healing journey, and we look at the birth process and the different stages of birth, there can be quite a lot of stress there. People can have C-sections. The birth can be longer. The mother can be under a lot of stress. There can be trauma in the family. There can be fear, and that can cause them these reflexes to stay active, and the nervous system to be in constant vigilance, which then manifests later in life, or during childhood, as dyslexia or dyspraxia or dyscalculia, or these kinds of things. So
fascinating. How does that link to dyslexia, for example? Then is it because the nervous system
for example, you can there's a the reflexes. They're all named. They're all things. So there's the fear paralysis reflex. There's the Moro reflex. There's the rooting and suck reflex. So so that a nipple has milk. So how to, so you suck on it out of instinct, right? So all of these reflexes, one or more of them, can be active, and they're the ones, along with a few other things which we can go into, create these nervous system glitches.
Glitches, I love that.
Yeah, which can then manifest as shyness, or reading issues, or counting challenges, or those kind of things.
Fascinating. So it's actually stress on the nervous system, then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a stress on the nervous system, and then so the nervous system is functioning properly because it thinks that it still needs to go down the birth canal. So you've got something called a spinal reflex. So when you brush your spine, you automatically wiggle.
Wow.
Right. So some people, when they have tight-fitting clothing, they're just kind of wiggling around because their nervous system going, oh, I still haven't, I still need to do that. So it's kind of,
haven't resolved.
It's kind of doing what it's supposed to be doing, but it's doing it in 20 years later.
That is incredible. So until it's resolved, it carries on. Gosh, isn't that interesting? Laura's just bounced into the chat saying interesting concept. Are there any studies on this, Jacob?
There's plenty of studies. So if you go to any child pediatrician, they will do reflex tests on babies to check their development state. Yeah. But what a lot of people, but then when adulthood comes, or later childhood, obviously a lot of people are aware of it, occupational therapists and osteopaths and these kind of people. But in the mainstream, the checks that babies get done aren't done on adults, and so the sort of link between birth issues and reflexes and adulthood isn't kind of made properly.
That's fascinating. I'm just wondering, when children are born, and because some of this is beginning to, this begins way before birth. You were
Of
talking
course, yes.
about earlier, from conception
Absolutely.
through to birth. You were saying so. There's a lot
Yeah,
that obviously the programs are being popped into our body at that point,
yeah,
but also the learnings of what's happening outside the womb are being translated internally, perhaps, of what's been heard, or the chemicals that are being produced by the mother or whatever are of influencing the child, right?
yeah. Of course, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
So,
and yet we just ignore this, don't we? We just
yeah,
interesting.
we do. So then people are then stuck with these challenges or conditions, and so then it's a question of coping, which of course. But then when you start to then if you actually can go through a healing process to find out, oh, okay, well, I've actually got my spinal gallant reflex is still active, which is why I find wearing tight clothes challenging, and I keep on my nervous system's always freaking out. Then you can sort of go, okay, well, it's that. So then it's about, well, what do you do with that?
Yeah, tight clothes. I never thought about that. Gosh, isn't that's an interesting
Or whatever
consequence?
trigger it is,
Or whatever,
whatever.
something's just triggering
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, with our kindergarten stage stuff, or even when mothers take kids to toddler group and things like that, if we were to introduce systems at that point that would, resolve those things somehow, is that possible, Jacob, even with toddlers?
Absolutely. So obviously, with toddlers, there are specific exercises that you can do for each reflex. Yeah. Again, this is not anything new. It's been around for a long time. People have been studying reflexes since Victorian times. Some of them are even named after some of the people that discovered them. So, occupational therapists, pediatricians, they will have certain exercises that they give the mothers to do with
To
their
the
with their
babies.
child. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But obviously, when it comes into later childhood or adulthood, then that's kind of just disappears for some reason. But
We're on to
so
the
from a
next
sort
thing.
of physiological point of view, then we can obviously start fixing that in adults.
Really interesting. And of course, we don't pick any of this up because we don't communicate with the child in that way, obviously. And the child's not
No,
aware of it either until later
no.
life. And it pops out then in adulthood, I reckon, or in our teenage years, is that? In the
That's right.
school
Yeah. So
system.
with kids and adults, there's a test you can do.
Of course.
For example, and with the healing process I do, then you can actually test the load on the nervous system with various techniques which you learn on the healing program. Which you say then you can sort of test for yourself. Oh, actually, I've got this reflex active because when I move my finger out of my field of vision and back, for example, I get a stress response and I start freaking out. And then you go, okay, right, well, okay, this is active, and then there's a process for healing that.
Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. What we're coming to understand more and more, the kind of things that we're totally unaware of, and
Yeah.
yet we're discovering these things. Really interesting. What's going on in the chat, Birdie? Let's just give you a pause for a minute, Jacob. Let's just catch up with the
Okay,
chat.
so we've got Laurie.
Yeah.
The reason for her involvement and being so on top of things, she's got a master's in counseling with a concentration in childhood development, specifically, ADHD, and she's raised two girls with ADHD. There we go.
There you go. Well, yeah, snap. So,
Yeah.
nice one.
Yeah.
Well, snap in terms of raising kids that way, absolutely, but not with the qualifications. Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, thanks, Laurie.
Okay, then Cecile said she just responded to Laurie's previous
Yeah,
comment, and then
back and
she also
forth. Yeah.
said intelligence exists everywhere in every breathing creature. But like we have emotional or rational intelligence, some of us have it more developed or underdeveloped due to various factors.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, I just noticed you nodding to that, Jacob. That's probably our nervous system. What did you call it? The stress on our nervous system that diverts some of our bandwidth away from normal functioning, or perfect functioning, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and it's so energetically draining to be constantly in hypervigilance, fight or flight, and on different levels. You might be kind of reasonably calm, but then have a constant stressors due to the wavelength of light, for example. If you were born under strip lights and it was traumatic, you can have that memory.
Gosh.
All kinds of different things. So you can be constantly in some kind of stress response and not kind of be, consciously aware of it. But your nervous system's constantly sort of going. Blah, 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 blah,
your nervous system's picked it up and you don't even know about it.
Yeah.
And isn't that interesting? Yeah, very fascinating. Yeah. Thanks, Berdine.
Okay. So Janice said, if I remember correctly, I believe that I have read somewhere that high IQ people are often on the border of the autism spectrum. If that is correct, it would seem that we need to rethink the way we see mental illnesses.
Or mental dysfunctions, even. Yeah, rather than, and not even call them dysfunctions or illnesses, right? Yeah. Interesting. I'd love to hear from what Dr. Julian Cecile says, Dr. Julian says as well.
Cecile said, very good point. And the pregnancy can also affect our nervous system and some of our internal or system blueprint.
Yeah, lovely language that's coming out here. Is this language kind of resonating with you, Jacob? Is this about right? They're looking at blueprints and things like that?
Of course, because our blueprint is to be healthy.
Yeah.
Our blueprint is to not have any
mental stress, nervous stress.
Pardon me, nervous system, stresses. That's how we're designed to be. But obviously, due to all kinds of different reasons, birth trauma, family trauma, toxins, and all kinds of things, that blueprint gets compromised, I suppose. And then then obviously we're left to kind of deal with it in some way.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
Laurie said she asked about the studies on that, and you went through that.
Yeah.
Andrew Caroline said, absolutely, Jacob. As a trained rhythmic movement therapy consultant, I'm so happy you are talking about this today.
There you go. Well, nice one. Yeah, nice one, Carolyn. Lovely to hear you. And spot on. Really great. Yeah.
Can I just say one thing? There's a comment.
Go for it.
There's a comment from Paul who says, "I'm not sure I want to be cured. I like me."
Nice.
And that's a very interesting point. I think, and I come across this sometimes with my clients, where it's like, but who am I going to be if I resolve this challenge or this part of me? Who am I going to be? I don't want to lose myself, and everybody's got that decision to make. Are they happy where they are, which is great, or are they not? And if you're not, then there's a process you can use to resolve that. And if you're happy with how you are, then that's great as well.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love this from Steve Whittle. For the first time in a long time, I've nothing to add. This is fascinating. Thanks for sharing. Steve is just brilliant. He says some great stuff. So, what else? Berdine, Dr. Julian?
Cecile, I'll check now, but Cecile said that they have the APGAR score in France.
Going back
when a baby is born.
Yeah.
So it measures the nervous system's reflectivity and it helps to assess if there's any issue.
Interesting.
Gillian said here, one of our issues is we still have flight or fight response from when we evolved, running from a lion. Modern life has given so many stimuli and information on social media, etc., that many of us live in a hyper-adrenalized state.
Yeah. And life's getting faster, right? Which means actually more and more stress on our nervous systems, I guess, Jacob.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
And I think and change is can be stressful to people. So any change can be stressful. But if you've got underlying nervous system freak out or whatever you want to call it, then it can just sort of turn into a multiplier and really sort of floor you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just picking up a comment here from Maria Burdine. Yeah, sorry.
Which
She
one?
says
The
here.
one
She
that she
says,
said.
well, a couple actually. I'll start
Oh
this one.
yeah.
Wow, fascinating. My daughter is always very sensory with clothes. Yeah. My grandson is exactly the same, and we're wondering whether there's some traits of autism there. That's
Yeah,
interesting,
yeah,
and particularly school was terrible for him,
yeah,
and still is.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and then she says, this one, Burdine.
Yeah, she had undiagnosed torticollis, also known as wry neck. I apparently had a traumatic birth. My neck wasn't corrected until I was 17. This has had a lifetime impact on me.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, corrected. So wow, yeah, and moving forwards had a big impact on you, Maria. Wow, yeah, interesting. And there's quite a bit coming about stress and pregnancy and things like that, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. So I think we'll come back to some of these comments in a minute, but I just wanted to move the conversation on a
Yes.
little bit. Let's move on to trauma, Jacob, because it sounds like we're kind of going into that territory a little bit about birth
Mm.
and things like
Yeah.
that. Does it manifest in different conditions, both physical and emotional? And how and talk us a bit more about the healing process on trauma. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, so trauma. So we've already come across, examples of trauma. So birth
Yeah,
trauma.
birth. Yeah.
Whether for the child or the mother.
Mm.
But so that's kind of, I suppose, maybe perhaps call it kind of localized specific trauma. So there's a specific event or series of events which can be really challenging and stressful for the child or the mother. But when you're talking about abuse or
Yeah, later life stuff. Yeah.
later life,
Yeah.
or experiencing long terms of extreme stress, where it comes into the sort of so you've got the perhaps the autism or the dyslexia, but you've also got PTSD or
Of
complex
course. Yeah.
PTSD,
Yeah.
where your whole system's in a kind of constant freak out
Yeah.
or
Freak out of that.
panic, terror, and so that's when in a way, so the kind of anatomy of that. So when you're experiencing something you don't want to experience, you're experiencing resistance to it, fear, anger, if you've got abusive parents, for example.
Yeah.
um, so your whole system becomes so full of all these really challenging emotions, and you're not in a position to deal with that when you're 5, 6, 7 years old. Yeah. So your whole energy system it just becomes full of that. Yeah. So and then you can that manifests in all kinds of different things, avoidance, and there's the I know I mean I, when I read the um, the DSM, or the statistical manuals of conditions, and there's hundreds of conditions which people, obviously doctors, diagnose and treat, and that's great. But obviously underneath that there's an underlying is trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to trauma and healing that, obviously there's a process that we use, and it's deals with the breath work. But I just wanted to sort of start bringing in the concept of energy, and obviously the Chinese talk about qi,
Yeah.
and obviously
Meridians.
meridians, and what essentially what I found works is where you start working with that energy system and the qi, the sort of wounded qi of your wounded qi, and then learning how to basically start replacing that with healthy qi, with healed qi from outside, from the sky, and start doing all that breath work and the healing work, and kind of learn how to navigate your mind body system, and direct that acquired chi to where it needs to go, so you can actually start shifting and removing that really challenging emotional gloop that's in us when we experience severe trauma.
So our energy systems flow,
Yeah, so you
normally and
haven't got all those
properly.
blockages, which can then obviously affect our organs and our all kinds of things.
Isn't it fascinating how it's all linked up? Yeah, because these meridian systems also point to our organs as well as an outlet, don't they? So anger resolves it somewhere in one of our organs, for example. Maybe the liver or something. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Fascinating, gosh, and chi. You talk about chi, which is energy meridians and things like that. I've got one of these machines that you just put your feet on and you lie on the floor and it moves back and forth. And have you come across any of these kind of machines that do stuff like that?
I've come across all kinds of different machines. I don't know the specific one, and some of them, if it works for you, fantastic. So, but ultimately, the healing journey is really discovering about yourself, why you are who you are. And if once you start to know how to apply your attention and the chi that you gather onto different parts of your brain and your amygdala and your liver meridian and your small intestine, and you can start to kind of power through all the areas of yourself that aren't well, that are wounded. That's where you get that's the healing journey that you can go on.
Fascinating, and you're talking about the stomach and areas of our organs and probably kidney function as well, I'm guessing. All the major organs, heart, and fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I hadn't appreciated that. You're making some really interesting connections here for us. And the same thing, and we've just touched on the trauma aspect and what happens with parents, if there's trauma with arguments or stress created by, I don't know, whatever, parents arguing or their own stuff that they've never resolved, then the whole thing perpetuates through the children, right? And PSTD right. You mentioned, is that the right word? PSTD?
PTSD, yeah.
PTSD, that's the right word, yeah.
PTSD.
It can start to not only be with them, but also passed on to the children and then the children's children. So it just goes on and on generationally, I guess.
Yeah.
And then gets passed through the birth canal, or into the next birth. As you're saying, just perpetuates.
That's right. Yeah.
My gosh. And presumably this stuff then, does it kind of exponentially build up then from family to generation?
I strongly believe so. Yeah. I mean, looking, healing my, parental trauma and my grandparents
Tell me about it.
And then once you sort of start that healing journey and start to recognize the different emotions and energies in you, you start to quite quickly go, actually that feels like it's older, and then you just know your system knows that's your grandfather or your father, for example. And then you sort of go, well, no wonder I'm not well, whatever it might be, because that trauma is transmitted down generations, and there's been lots of studies about that. So yeah,
things like, I mean, this topic might hopefully not disturb people, but this thing about past life regression, where you kind of, but if something has originated not necessarily from your parents, or they passed through your parents, but it's been passed through from grandfather and a generation, then I can start to see that the logic is to kind of trace it back, but you've got no knowledge of where that is because it starts with your parents or your grandparents. That's all you've got, right?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is when you start to feel the quality of the chi of your chi, and you start to recognize, that feels a bit different to what I'm used to. It must be, perhaps that's my mother's, and you start as a process to work that out for yourself, so you can kind of go through that. And go, actually, that's there was a lot of abuse in my family generationally. And going through my healing journey, sometimes I'd come across things and I'd be like, ooh, really kind of icky stuff, but it's just like, okay, well, it is there, and I just need to do the healing process, and that's how you resolve it.
Do you find, Jacob, that you could heal 3 generations at a time, perhaps? If one part, let's say the youngest generation feels something they want to resolve, which then goes to the father or the mother, and they're working on it together, perhaps, or even the grandparents if they're still around.
Yeah, absolutely. That comes up a lot in the group healing sessions. People will just kind of go, oh, actually, that just feels like my grandfather or my mother. Because we inherit their energy system, we inherit their them.
I
Because
just want to,
we're at conception we are our mother and our father, right? And then our consciousness gets created, newly, but from them as well, right? So
blueprinted from them as a starting
yeah,
point, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. I just want to repeat that just so that we all get it. We inherit not just our behaviours and genetics, but actually, interestingly, there, Jacob, what you've said is we inherit our energy system from our parents and
yeah,
parents. That's something that's quite that's quite interesting. Never thought about that before. No, there's something to think about,
yeah.
folks. Okay, so I don't know whether Paul Stead's listening, but we can't see you in the green room yet. So we were wondering whether you might have just just had an issue this morning. That just if you're there, please dial in to do the get to know you in 5 slot. If you're not, we'll just carry on. So, but just to let you know that Paul hasn't turned up yet, so there's probably an issue his end. So, no problem at all. So, we talked a little bit about trauma, and going back to, and if we've kind of covered this, then we can move on to another question. But talk to us about the kind of neurodiverse conditions, Jacob. How do these manifest in different conditions?
Yeah,
Give us a bit more about that. It's quite interesting.
We've talked about neurodiversity and
Mm.
trauma, nervous system reflexes. But obviously, if we look at the brain and nervous system function, there's a lot of neurodiverse conditions can be affected by gut health,
Right.
by brain function, by things like aluminium in the brain,
Oh,
which
right.
is a
Interesting. Aluminium in the brain.
yeah, that's a neurotoxin, right? So
Ah.
aluminium is a neurotoxin. That's again, this is not this is not news to it's all been researched.
Mm.
But obviously, some people have difficulty in getting rid of heavy metals, for
Yeah,
example.
like
Yeah,
mercurial
so
stuff as well.
yeah, mercury from fillings,
Lead. Yeah.
and some studies will say there's no danger. Some studies will come up and say, well, actually there is a danger. But again, if you go through a healing process and you can actually test energetically for yourself, okay, well, how do I feel about mercury? And those that start going, oh, that feels really challenging, typically have got have had fillings, or some other sources of mercury,
Interesting.
so you can things like gut health and gut toxins can affect your neurotransmitters, your dopamine levels, but because everyone's unique, it's not a question of saying, well, that will fix that or that will fix that. It's a combination of things that you need to look at.
Absolutely fascinating. So, yeah, I mean, you've moved on to gut health, and yeah, let's explore that a little bit further because
Yeah.
perhaps Caroline and Paul Winfield might be interested in this as well as Julian if he's still on the line. What role does gut health play? Take us a bit more about that. You just sort of started a little bit on that, in terms of things that end up sort of in different areas like aluminium or mercury or whatnot. But
Yeah. Well,
give us a
okay.
little bit
So
more information about that.
in terms of gut health, so from a sort of top, from a simple, to start with, obviously our digestive system is there to get nutrients from our food, right?
Yeah.
So we need a healthy stomach, small intestine to break up the food that we eat, chop it into bits, and then into amino acids and fats and vitamins and minerals. So our cells can then create the proteins and everything else that they need for our skin and everything.
Yeah.
So we need to be, for a start, eating healthy food. We need to be eating the right oils and fats so that our cell membranes can be regenerated properly. And when when that doesn't happen, when we don't absorb the right nutrients from our food, then that's the first area of problem, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Right.
So then you're looking at, well, do we have enough stomach acid? Do we have enough digestive enzymes? And do we have any infections? Do we have bacterial infections, parasite infections that are interfering with that acquisition of vitamins and minerals from our food? Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of reasons why that doesn't happen, but that's what should be happening. We should be getting the food, and we should be getting everything we need for our body to create all the proteins and everything that it needs to create. And when it doesn't happen, we've got problems.
We've got problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned, energetically, you can test for these. This is just thinking about Carolyn on the line as well. Is that sort of
Yeah.
kinesiology type stuff that you can test the
Yeah, that's
body
right.
quite naturally
Yeah, of
for
course. Yeah,
for
and you
wrong
can learn how
foods?
to. Yeah, and you can learn how to test for yourself. Obviously, again,
Mm,
that's all. That's all on the healing program that I'll be talking
mm,
about later. So you can actually sort of start, being aware for yourself. You go shopping, and you can start kind of, feeling whether the food's right for you. And a lot of it, a lot of times you'll feel the pesticides on the fruit, for example, and you just feel it, and you'll go, oh, that doesn't feel good, right? Well,
wow.
there's a
Yes.
reason, your
Yeah.
body says, it, gives you that reaction. So you can start looking for the right foods, for example. You can start, you know, eating healthily, intuitively, without kind of risking it to fate, as it were.
So there's self-tests we can do, folks, is what Jacob's saying there, that we can actually test
Yeah,
for these things using our own bodies, and there are ways
yeah,
that Jacob can teach you to do that, so you can sort it out for
yeah.
yourself. So we don't need to send stuff away for hair samples and things like that. I'm questioning this. I'm not suggesting it, but is that correct
Well,
then, Jacob?
I think it's always important to
Get a proper diagnosis.
it's always
Yeah,
important to check things with your doctor.
of course. Yeah,
That they're professionals, they know what they're
yeah,
doing,
yeah.
but obviously they just don't, the way that they don't have the time, they don't have the kind of space to give you that full health service.
Yeah, of
Even though
course.
they'd like to, I know a
Yeah.
lot of doctors who like, I'm so frustrated. I've got 5 minutes with a patient,
Mm,
um, and so they do a fantastic job. So we've got to recognise that, and do it with, in partnership with our doctor.
yeah.
But having said that, it's all about following, learning how to
Do stuff
accurately and
yourself.
safely, follow your own intuition as well.
Love that, and getting in tune with our own bodies. That's
Yeah,
really powerful. And those are the sort of things that Jacob teaches. We'll come on to those in a minute. Jacob, I'm just going to give
yeah,
you a quick break for now and just catch up with some of the chat. Birdie,
yeah.
what's going on? Let's just give a bit of
Okay, there's
pause for Jacob.
lots and
Yeah,
lots
isn't
and
there?
lots going on in here.
Tons. Yeah.
We've got Julian saying that understanding you and what works for you, if you have ADHD, etc., is very important. For me, I have a large anxiety response. You need to find what works for you to release this tension.
Lovely.
My personal experience, exercise is able to counteract this and actually give hyper focus and the ability to get a lot more done than most, which is where you can utilize the way your mind or body works to your advantage.
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, I guess that's right too, right? That helps to relieve some of the stress on the nervous system, I guess, Jacob.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone has different ways of de-stressing, whether it's sport, exercise, addictions,
Yeah.
alcohol, all kinds of other addictions, which we may not want to go into. But yeah, it's just finding the right path for you. That's the challenge of people. A lot of people
Yeah,
have.
and it sounds like, Jacob, that you're opening up quite an interesting pathway for us to follow here. We'll come on to that in a second, but let's just finish up on the comments, Berdine, so that we can honour some of
Okay,
these.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
pick here and there. So if I
yeah,
do
fine.
miss something,
We apologise.
bear with me. Caroline said many diagnostic labels are given based on observations of behaviors and questionnaires. This is a long one,
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
especially autism.
Yeah.
And medication is often given to address these behaviors rather than understanding how all the systems, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and energy work together.
Yeah.
Everything interacts together to create our physical wellness, and all systems needs to be addressed. Also, we have a brain in our gut which senses danger, our gut reaction, and communicates with a part of the brain, amygdala, and communicates with our motor part of the brain to take action to stay safe. Our heart brain is the first to be developed in the womb and is our emotional brain. Our head brain is the receiver of information and communicates with the rest of our body to take action. Triggers from past trauma also cause what appears to be overactive behaviors, but these are the top of the iceberg from many underlying past events and traumas.
Wow.
And I can relate to this, actually.
Can you, Bertie?
Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I had ADHD my whole school career through, but it only surfaced when I went to university.
Yep, same
So
here.
I had a bunch of areas that, I performed very well in school.
Yeah.
But it's only after when I went to go see, they said, but you've got ADHD and you should have gotten medication already then. But my sports actually suppressed the ADHD. So I could perform better.
So you could perform,
Yes.
you got a release. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow, what a lovely share. Brilliant. And Caroline, you're on it. I mean, what a bit of prose there. Hope you didn't do all that on your iPhone, because that would have taken you ages to type. Well done. That's great. Thank you, Caroline. And thanks, Berdin. Yeah, what else, Berdin? Wow.
Laurie said generational trauma, what a hard cycle to break.
Yeah.
Talk about nature versus nurture.
Spot on. Yeah. And and it could be that what you're dealing with your parents might not be them, it might be their parents, right? So it's just been passed generationally. What a hard thing to break. Yeah. But the point is that our energy cycles can be restored. And interesting, Jacob, here's a thought for you, that if you've got these kind of past traumas, these regressions of the past being sort of passed on family to family through birth and conception, etc., actually, if we break that, Jacob, does that mean then that when we come to develop the next generation of people, that their energy systems, they're going to inherit something different, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we can break the chains of the past, folks. This is important stuff. That's why this stuff is so important. It's not just about your healing, but it's about moving on generationally to the next generation and thereafter. If we can produce that for our children, then their children's children will benefit too. What a profound thought. Wow. Oh, I just got to pause for a minute there. Carry on, Bertie, while I just sort of like just take on that massive information.
Cecile actually mentioned this by saying that she heard about carrying energetic memory through generations, but she said that it can be cured or broken. Yes. I've experienced past life regression myself.
Wow.
Very fascinating.
Very powerful.
And she also says they are energetic healer who can help breaking the inheritance cycle and freeing us.
Jacob, go on.
So I just wanted to add to that. There absolutely are energetic healers that can help you with that. But my kind of mission is to teach people how to do that for themselves and how to kind of spread that information. So that ultimately, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still learn the process.
Well said. Yeah, and that's your mission, to help us all do that, right, Jacob? I like the way you just brought that. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, thank you. Berdin.
Okay. Caroline's got another essay here for us. So she says there are many able children, your blog post, there are many able children and adults diagnosed with autism, considered on the higher end of the spectrum, who say they do not want to be cured or healed, and that's okay. If they are happy with life, but there are many parents like me who have an autistic daughter who was diagnosed at age 2, was nonverbal, hand flat, and wasn't able to play appropriately with her brother or peers, and therefore we look for ways to help our children develop to enable them to achieve the best life possible. And my daughter has received many therapies and interventions and is now a university graduate living independently.
There you go. Well done. Yeah. And she says this to follow on, doesn't she?
Yeah, she just loves the awareness that you're sharing, Jacob.
There you go. Bit of love in the room for you, Jacob. Yeah, lovely.
And so I just wanted to add to that. I think also there's a to show parents how they can help to heal their kids as well is one of the areas of the work I do. So there's a lot you can do that when you're in that despair and you kind of go, my kid's not performing well at school, or he's got she behavioral challenges or whatever it might be. There's so much you can do as a parent to heal that as well.
Yeah, lovely. Let's go on to that. So, Jacob, you've got your call to action here. Talk us through this a little bit, Jacob.
Yeah, so basically, I've just launched an online healing community where you can. So it's a combination of online training. So you log in and there's me and other people. Soon, just taking you through. From where do you start in healing? So it's starting with breath work. Gathering chi, getting your nervous system calm. It'll be open for selling from about 1:00 this afternoon. And you can get a 10% discount on your first month's membership with the Leaders Live coupon code. And it's basically a monthly membership platform where you learn how to heal all these things, all the nutrition, the ancestral trauma, the meridian system, your liver function, your brain function, toxicity. Learn how to heal others, learn how to heal your children, and depending on your and so if you go to the next slide.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And just to say, that coupon is on your website, right? So if you follow innerfreedom.uk, you will find it there. And
I'll add it. I'll add it. I'll add it to the. I'll add it there to the pages, so you can use it for your. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you want to go to the next page? Here we go. So here's a matrix.
So basically, obviously, depending on your budget, you can. There's a bronze membership going up to diamond on a monthly basis, and it depending on your investment. There's online training and community membership. So even if you're don't have much money, you can still learn the whole process. You can still join the community. There's forums, and find partners, find buddies to join, to do healing journey with, and then memberships as they go up in value. There's weekly group healing, weekly group healing Q&A, so you can ask me or one of our other healers, which I'm also training, specific questions about your journey, and then it goes up to gold, where you've got a personal healing program which we create for you. And then going up a level, actual healing time to actually start to help you to shift some of that really challenging energy. And obviously it goes into things like, recognizing your shadow, and actually what ultimately creates our suffering is ourselves. Yeah. So how do you actually do that and shift that, and and start that kind of spiritual journey as well.
Yeah. And how long does this journey take, generally speaking? I mean, I know how long's a piece of string, but are we talking about a short, sharp exercise here, or 6 months?
Well, some of the transformations can be quite very quick, and some of them obviously take a bit longer. So I think realistically about a year, for a sort of healing journey to sort of get you to a place where you've started to really shift. Yeah.
No, thank you, Jacob. Very interesting.
And you can pause at any time. You can resubscribe. So it's really down to how you can fit it into your life.
How you can fit it into your life. Thank you for that. And I will load this up into the group, as well as put the link in later onto a link, so anybody can share that. I forgot to give that to Birdin actually as a Dropbox link, so I'll pop that in the chat later on so people can see that. And but you've got access to the website, which this is on anyway, Jacob, is that correct?
It is, yeah. It's all on the website.
Lovely. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Jacob. I mean, wow, we could talk to you forever, but we're kind of coming to an end now. Just while I'm sort of just ending stuff, look, there's an opportunity for people to ask questions for themselves. So if you want to ask a question that you haven't asked yet and you want to ask, then here's your opportunity to do so now. And there's a little bit of a delay in the feed, so I will just finish off some stuff here. We didn't get to know you in 5 slot today. Don't know why. Paul was probably busy doing something else, so apologies for that. Let me just find out where I'm going to. So we've done your okay, here we go. So yeah, I just wanted to say, look, thanks for that extraordinary conversation that we've had today. We've loved having you, Jacob, on the show. It's absolutely brilliant.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, wow, and what a load of comments we've had and really interesting engagement. Thank you. That's what the show's all about, is about extraordinary conversations. So, please, the podcast will come out too shortly, folks, in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, depending on whether Birdine can get what her load sharing is. Sorry, I just lost my words there for a minute. And remember, folks, and remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And Birdine's put all the links in now and put them in again. And before I get to what's on next week, folks, just a quick reminder that Leaders Live is a free show for all leaders, directors, managers and entrepreneurs who are interested in business growth through edutainment and enjoy taking part in interactive and extraordinary conversation, just like we've had today. So that's brilliant. And together in this community, we aim to make the world better, folks. And we want to bring a spirit of freedom, joy and fun and feel-good factor to all of our working lives. So that's kind of how we're rolling on this. So, and also from my own commercial offerings, I'll just quickly put up that CTA. If you're interested in what I do, then please contact me if you need help in your business to develop effective leadership, sales and operations teams. So I help fix your teams so your people can operate at their very best and run a successful, profitable business. And I do that through a set of specialised development programs like high performance teamwork, like executive and team coaching, like NLP for business diplomas, etc., etc. So that's a little bit about what I do. And just a quick goose for next week then, folks. So the goose for next week is next week on Tuesday. We're back to Tuesdays again. This was just a blip in the matrix, as it were, that we were on a Monday. But we're back to Tuesday, the 4th of October. Can't believe we're October already. Usual time at 8:45 UK time, where we'll be hanging out with Nikki Wild. She's been on the show before, Director of Wild Empowerment, and here her LinkedIn strapline is de-stressing directors to make businesses positive, productive and profitable. Fantastic. So we've got all that lot to come next week. So that's and we'll be chatting about how the business case for coaching to grow your people, to grow your business is important, folks. So that's another one of Nikki's straplines. This and a whole lot more. We can't wait. Be there or be square. So we're going to pop into Discord now. For those of you who have got VIP access and would like to just join us at the tail end of the show, just to kind of ask Jacob a few more questions perhaps, or just to finish off the show for the next 10 minutes, we'll be there. So that is a wrap, folks. Jacob, thanks again ever so much for your time, and Birdine for moderating us. Absolutely fantastic. We've loved that today. Let me just send out the wrap-up soon here. So it's been great to hang out with you all today, folks, online. Thanks very much for being part of this show, folks, and making this a great community vibe. And we can't do this without you, folks. We can't do it without you. Podcast will be available shortly too, when we get to that with load sharing, etc. in South Africa. And in the meantime, that's a wrap, folks. So hang on. So thank you to our hangout guest, Jacob, to Birdine, our moderator, and me. We all wish you a great week ahead. Cheers for now, folks. You can pop out to the intro music. That's all for now, folks. See you next week. Ta-ra a bit. Bye-bye.